This is Otstarva's tier list from patch 4.7. And this is Eclipse's tier list from patch 7.4. You may notice a few differences. There are way more killers. Places have been moved around. But there's one thing between the two that's exactly the same. Greetings, gamers. My name is Kamikaze, and 2 years and 10 killers later, DBD has changed a lot. Not just the tier list, but basically everything. The maps were uglier, then were even more terribly balanced than they are now. Perks were different. Newer players who never had to experience the Dark Souls Dead Hard or one button decisive strike, I envy you. Insta heals, keys, Jesus Christ, the keys. But it's not like killers didn't have insane stuff of their own to counter with. Ruin and Pop. Tinker used to activate infinite times instead of once per gen. Yes, really. And Old Spirit. Your eyes did not deceive you at that Ots tier list. Yeah, she was above the nurse. That was a real debate for a while before Spirit and her add-ons got turbo nerfed. But while Behavior has done a reasonably good job at nerfing a lot of the best stuff, though, they seem to struggle with buffing the stuff at the bottom. Most of the killers at the bottom 2 years ago remain at the bottom now. But there's one killer who still sits at the bottom I feel is tremendously underrated. I realize it's a hot take to say the Trapper is not the worst killer in the game, but I don't care. And to be honest, the title's clickbait. He's not B tier, he's probably like high C tier, you know, I'd say around Ghostface on this other tier list. But why do I believe this? Well, the Trapper remains unique in his ability to instantly flip any game through sheer luck, and he's gotten better at it with changes. And also, the steady stream of buffs he has received over the years. While none of the buffs individually are enough to make him significantly better, they've compounded over the years to where he is clearly better than those around him, despite his reputation. But what do I mean by flip games? Well, the Trapper is not the worst killer in the game. He is, however, the most inconsistent and luck-based killer in the game. And DVD players in general are a very feel-based crowd and really hate inconsistency. Look, we've all played games as or against the Trapper, where the Trapper puts someone on a hook, and right as he's doing that, somebody else will just randomly step in a trap right next to him. The Trapper now has two people on hooks right next to each other. It can put a bunch of them around them, and you've effectively won the game at this point. In fact, no killer in the entire game can secure a win as quickly as the Trapper if things go right. And I realize that that might sound ridiculous, but it's true. Hear me out. One survivor who doesn't even know it's a Trapper yet walks over to the basement, 30 seconds into the game, steps in a trap in a bush they couldn't see. The Trapper walks over, smack, hook, trap, 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 boom, you've won the game. Yeah, you still have the obligation of playing out the rest of the match, but if you lose at this point, I hate to break it to you, it doesn't matter what your killer you're playing. It's a skill issue. Unfortunately, however, the flip side is also true. You can play amazingly, but no one steps in a trap the whole game, and you just lose. But the Trapper is a big brain killer, and people just aren't smart enough to play him well. Right, sure. That galaxy brain trap you have, is it in a bush next to a loop? Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, and for people saying that spots like this are some kind of big brain, high skill play, no, that's a bug and you're abusing it. No, I maintain that the Trapper is actually one of the least interactive killers in the game for the Trapper as well. As opposed to the Hag, where you have to like predict survivor movements, where they're going to run after they'll get hit, try to force them more into certain areas. The Trapper insta-downs, so, you know, who needs brain power? Just scatter those bitches all over the place and get random downs for free once in a while. Playing the Trapper is like gambling, alright? And that gamble averages out to be a decent killer. But people just remember the bad games more than the good ones, leading him to be placed at the bottom of tier list. I will say, though, with his power being basically no input and RNG, Most of the skill of playing Trapper is actually just being good at Killer in general. You M1 people while trying to control the map and vaguely push them in the direction of your traps. Honestly, if anything, Trapper is probably the most skillful killer in the entire game, because you have to be good at the killer role. Like if you can get a really high win rate with the Trapper, it probably just means you're really good at killer in general. The fun thing about his power, though, is that it's a really great skill equalizer. Like if you're bad, right, and you're playing the Trapper, and you go against a much better team, I don't care how many thousands of hours you and your squad have if two of you step in bush traps right next to the basement. Now I know what you're thinking, and what the common argument is that the Trapper has to spend so much time running around picking up his traps. And while a little bit still, he's fast now, alright? And this leads me to my next point. The Trapper has gotten buffed. A lot. Seriously, people don't seem to realize just how many buffs this guy has gotten and how much better he is than he used to be. For example, looking through the history since this aughts tier list, the Trapper has had the escape rate of his traps reduced, the traps were physically darkened, had the number of traps that spawn increased, had his base carrying capacity increased from 1 to 2, gained a 7.5% haste boost after placing a trap, had the number of traps that spawn increased again, and had his trap spawn RNG improved. He has received, by far, more buffs than any other killer over the last 2 years. Now, he for sure needed it, and while I don't think any one of these changes was enough to push him out of the bottom spot, together, these changes really add up, and I guarantee if these had all come packaged in one big patch and touted as a Trapper rework, he would absolutely be higher on the tier list. But again, the DPD community is very feeling based, so he sits at the bottom. He also has a good suite of add-ons. He isn't reliant on them, but they do help boost his power quite a bit. Also, maps. People like to point out maps as a bad point for Trapper. You know, maps just don't have grass like they used to, but that's bullshit. What makes a good Trapper map? A small to medium-sized map with lots of grass. Well, let's look at the recent maps then. The last 5 maps are the Nostromo, which, to be fair, is pretty bad for the Trapper. Not good. But Toba, actually pretty good Trapper map. Lots of grass, lots of, small choke points, unavoidable choke points, and it's a bit bigger than he'd like, but it's solid. New Shelter Woods, which is essentially the Trapper's wet dream. Borgo, which is, after the rework, another really good Trapper map. And Garden of Joy. Well, that's a horrible map for about 90% of the killers. It's actually a great Trapper map. It's small, there's lots of windows to put traps under, and there's grass everywhere. Finally, the only complete map overhaul in this time was Red Forest Realm. Mother's Dwelling is rough because it's enormous, but it's rough for everybody. And Temple of Purgation is one of the best Trapper maps in the entire game. So while maps are still a big RNG thing for him, and there are certainly painful, horrible Trapper maps, to say that all the recent maps are terrible for him is just blatantly disingenuous. Actually, most of them have been quite beneficial for him. I think it might require a mindset shift when playing as the Trapper. Don't load in thinking, I'm going to try really hard to win this killer game. Think, I'm going to go into this casino and put it all on black. But, for real though. I get that he feels terrible to play a lot of the time. I don't play Trapper for most of the time because of this exact reason. Because there are games you should win that you don't. But there are also games that you should lose that you win, and that's just the nature of the Trapper's power. Is that healthy design for a character? Probably not, but that's a whole other video. I just wanted to talk about his current objective power level, and how the Trapper is really underrated. Anyway, my name is Kamikaze. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment about how you think the worst killer in DBD is. Have I convinced you that it's not the Trapper, or am I a big idiot who is wrong? Let me know, and stay tuned, because I've got big things planned for this year, so I'll catch you in the next video, gamers.